This is hopefully a short little video to show you how the pivot points work. There are different kinds of pivot points. Here on Investopedia, they're explaining the general pivot points and what they are. They are indicating bullish sentiment and bearish sentiment. The pivot point itself is simply the average of the high and the low. So it's the average of the high and low, but for the sake of my demonstration, I'm going to show you the middle point of the high and the low. And that might not be the average, but it is the midpoint of the closing prices of the candles. It's specifically for day traders, predominantly used by day traders. Let's look at a chart. So Apple, this is the Apple's Woodies pivot points in green, Fibonacci calculated pivot points in red, and classic calculated pivot points in blue. So which one you want to pick is going to depend on the stock that you want to follow and how well that stock works with your with the pivot points. Find the right pivot point method. And with Motive Wave, you can show all pivots. So if you're doing a back test, you can look and see how the pivot points worked as far back as you want. Then pick the best pivot point system for you. Let's take a look at SPY. And you can see SPY today, we're using the Woodies pivots here. Here's the pivot point that Woodies calculated. Here is the midpoint between the high yesterday and the low yesterday. The middle point is there, but the average is right in here, very close. And you can see that from the open, we went down and we missed the support point. So this particular Woodies pivot is not very good for the SPY today, because you can see its support and resistance are falling away from the pivot points and the support points that Woodies calculates. So let's go and let's apply the classic. Let's see if that's any better. The classic works much better, and you can see here that the drop at the open was to the first support level. We tested that support level here, essentially here, almost here. If people are day trading and they're looking to get out at support, they're not going to wait and touch this red line. If they've made a purchase, up here, get close enough to the support point and get out, take your money, and then wait for a defined bounce. The bounce came, stopped at the pivot point. So here your classic pivot points were the best for trading the SPY. Let's see if you were trading Netflix on a pivot point basis. Here is the middle of yesterday's, and here is the pivot point, just a little bit higher. And you can see we've got all the pivot points there. Let's just look at one at a time. And do the red ones work? No, the red ones don't really work. Do the green ones work? Yeah, the green ones seem to be working. Again, the classic. Do the Fibonacci's work? The yellow ones? Not quite. So let's get rid of the Woody. And now we've got Fibonacci calculated and classic calculated. The Fibonacci's are working pretty well. Base point, minus 38.2, going down to minus 61.8, and down to support 1 on the classics. So the pivot point for the classic and the Fibonacci's is the same. The support levels are different. So here's an idea. Calculate with the classic and the Fibonacci, and then arrange your day trading to get in at support, out at the pivot point, or go short at the pivot point, switch to going long at support. And you do it after you've seen a touch of the pivot point, and then you want to see 2 confirmed candles. Let's go into the SPY here and see what that would look like. Here's your touch. Here's another touch. Here's the next candle. And here's the following one after that. You could get in at that one and then ride it up. And if you get out, you break even. But you don't, because it hasn't broken support 1. So you stay in the trade, and eventually you get out at the pivot point.